Let us start with some questions. The truth behind Sudan's war. European eyes now are open. Is this true? How European action in Sudan is outpacing the United States of America. Why Sudan RSF terrorist militia loot but refuse to protect civilians. Europe is stepping in. The turning point in Sudan's conflict. What was the reason? The war in Sudan will not stop until the lies stop. Now there is hope because the truth is starting to become clear to some European countries, part of the American political community, unfortunately not the administration by 100%, and other parts of the world. People in the West are beginning to see who is truly attacking civilians and violating human rights in Sudan in a systematic way, not isolated incidents. No matter how much false media or countries, rich countries that they own media and run media, are trying to hide the truth, trying to cover it up. The truth is coming out. Some countries even use money to change the position of other politicians in other countries and officials, even in big and democratic countries. One example that proves the truth is the incident with the Salesian Sisters organization, a Christian Catholic organization that serving people in Sudan. Or Mary's house that was attacked by the RSF Militia. At the time of the attack, the church was sheltering children, surrogate mothers, Italian Catholic nuns, and others from different countries. The nuns were taking care of children and mothers. The militia looted the church and Mary's house, destroying religious symbols and statues, thinking there was money or gold hidden inside. The Sudanese Army, Sudan Armed Forces, SAF, successfully defended the area, but the militia retreated and placed snipers in tall buildings around the church and the area. They continued their attack and killed a Sudanese boy standing at the door of Mary's house. Sudanese people from the neighborhoods, they come there because there is water, food, electricity. The militia often uses snipers to make people flee their houses so they can loot and destroy the area. This is why they attack and they continue to attack Mary's house. This terrifying situation continued for some time, almost more than a year. However, in special operation carried out by the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Counter-Terrorism Forces of General Intelligence Service in Sudan, the nuns and children were evacuated. This operation was extremely dangerous and complex. Part of it was done across the Nile River by boats. Another part involved in sneaking behind the enemy's line, and some tactics used by the counter-terrorism forces are still secret because they are still working in the area and defeating the militia every day. There are still some mothers and children in the area, mostly from South Sudan and neighboring countries, along with 2 church employees who decided to stay because Sudanese Armed Forces is making progress and securing the area, and also because they feel that still they have obligation to the community that they live there to serve them by water and electricity, because they use solar plates. Although the Sudanese government offered them, all of them, a chance to go to safer places, but some of them they have chosen to go, to leave, and some of them they have chosen to stay. Not a big number, but they have chosen that. International humanitarian law protects them from being forced to leave. This is why the Sudanese Armed Forces still respect their will. The question is, why did the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Counter-Terrorism Forces of the General Intelligence Service in Sudan succeeded in protecting civilians while the Rapid Support Forces failed? Why the RSF Militia takes the risk of robbing banks and homes and churches, but not taking the risk of protecting civilians? They claim that, but they don't take the risk. They take the risk only when there is money. Why were they brave enough to storm the area and loot the church, but not brave enough to evacuate civilians from dangerous area? The answer is simple. They don't want to. The militia cannot carry out a professional humanitarian mission because they are focused on looting, raping, and kidnapping. The countries and the groups that support them cannot control them. Believe me, they cannot control them. They don't have solution. They just have to push them and to supply them with weapons to kill Sudanese people. But they cannot stop them from doing that or force them to protect civilians. For over a year, actors from Italy have tried, and Christian community have tried to convince those backing the militia to intervene, keeping the criminals away from Mary's house and the area, but they failed. The countries supporting the militia cannot force them to protect civilians, because if they do so, the militia will stop fighting and the conflict will end, and they don't want the conflict to be end because they want to control Sudan, to take the gold, and to establish a puppet government. These countries that provide the Rapid Support Forces militia with weapons are only interested in controlling Sudan. They don't care about humanitarian issues. They try just to pay money and bribes for politicians and whoever to cover the crimes of the militia, but they cannot and they don't want to stop the militia from human rights violation. They don't care about humanitarian issues. They know that the militia has no intention in protecting civilians, and that if they pressured to do so, they will stop fighting. The militia fights only for the sake of stealing, looting, kidnapping, and sometimes even selling girls as sex slaves in somewhere in Africa. This is why the countries supporting the militia have failed to address the crisis. The Sudanese Armed Forces and the Counter-Terrorism Forces stepped in, successfully evacuating the nuns and children. Some of them choose to stay in the area protected by the Sudanese Armed Forces. The Salesian Operation marked a turning point in how Europe, the church community, and many in America view the situation. As a result, intelligence agencies in Western countries are now realizing that staying neutral in Sudan is no longer a solution or an option. it is essential to work with the Sudanese Armed Forces and other regular forces and the Counter-Terrorism Forces, who have proven to protect civilians, even putting themselves in danger, at a risk to evacuate Christians. These forces respect international laws and human rights. The Sudanese Armed Forces and the General Intelligence and all regular Sudanese forces. Europe has also recognized that the criminal behavior of the Rapid Support Forces poses serious threats, not only to Sudan, but also to Europe, Africa and Europe. This militia now is seen as a key partner for human trafficking gangs, which are major cause for irregular migration to Europe. This conflict could allow terrorists and criminal elements to enter Europe within the migration, the irregular migration, because RSF is willing to do that in exchange of money. Europe has started to act, and now America must decide what to do. And this is why I wrote my article about the intelligence diplomacy and the visits of the director of the Sudanese General Intelligence, General Ibrahim Mufaddal, to Italy, to France, where he met with the security community and the intelligence community, and in France he met with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also the tour included five Arab countries discussing the same threat that raised by the militia, Rapid Support Forces, and the countries that offering them the support and the supplies.